I want to talk about auditioning for a band. I've talked previously about the things you might want to do to give you a chance of getting involved with other musicians, meeting other musicians. I'll put the links to all my previous videos that are relevant below in this series. But now you find yourself in the position where the moment's arrived, you've made contact with someone and you've been invited to an audition, or you've got a phone number that you're going to ring a band or somebody else that you don't know to get yourself an audition with a band. I'm going to split this into two. In this first part, I'm going to talk about the preparation for the audition based on my experience, and hopefully give you some tips that I think may be useful to you, hopefully. And in the second part, I'll do that separately. I'll talk about the audition itself on the day, some things that are more relevant to the actual performance. So in this section, I'm just going to be talking about the part between where you make the call, the scary call. Hiya, I've seen your advert on the music notice board or on the website or whatever. I'm interested in joining your band, or someone's called you. So from there to the day that you arrive, there's quite a few things that might be able to make a difference to your success and your happiness in doing that. So let's assume you've got the minimum amount of information. You've gone to the music shop, you've looked on the notice board, and it said, for example, rock band seeks guitar player, ring John, such a number, or pop band wants drummer, ring Julie on such a number, and that's all you've got. So you're keen, you want to have a go, you ring the number. So where do you go from there in terms of finding out some more info and being able to take part in what's going to happen? So the first thing I would say is ask some questions. You might have a load of information, it might all be on the advert, but I'm starting from basics, the fact that you haven't been told anything, and you're going to need to ask them some questions. So the first thing I've just said, such a body seeks such a musician, ring this number. The first thing, if you noticed, they haven't told you where it is. If it's in a local music shop, there's a fair chance it might be reasonably local to you, but always make sure you check that as the first thing, because bands will probably advertise in lots of different places, musicians also will, and whether or not you can get to somewhere or an other musician can get to somewhere varies between different people. For example, if you've got your own transport, if you've got a car and all your stuff fits in your car, and you're not bothered about driving half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever, to a rehearsal, then that's no problem for you. If you don't have those facilities, if you're going to have to catch a bus or whatever you need to do to get there, you need to know exactly where it is that you're going to be rehearsing relative to where you live. As well as that, you also need to be asking how often you're going to be rehearsing. So you might think it's alright, well, I don't mind driving half an hour, 40 minutes to go and rehearse once a week, but if the band is rehearsing 3 or 4 times a week, then that might become a bit of an issue for you to do that. And also, what time do they normally rehearse? My own experience, when I've joined other bands at the sort of amateur beginner level, which is what we're talking about now, and actually through most of the time I've been playing, they tend to rehearse once a week as a typical sort of time frame. There's times when I've been in bands where we've rehearsed more than once a week for particular reasons. Either we were getting ready to make a recording, or we're getting ready to do a particularly important gig or something that we really wanted to make sure that we were on top of. So we might have done an extra couple of ones the week or two before. But in my own experience, as a hobby amateur musician, once a week is the typical amount. So you want to know where it is, how often it is, and what time of the week it is. You know, so if they rehearse on a Wednesday night, if you're free on a Wednesday night, that's great, but if you have other commitments, then it's never going to work. So make sure you get that out of the way to begin with, because otherwise the rest of it you're just wasting your time and you're wasting their time as well. So the crux of that point is make sure that it's something that you can commit to, and it's easily solved by asking a few questions to them. So assuming you can get there, you know, that's not a problem, the logistics of it. We talk about the music. We just said rock band seeks guitar player. Doesn't really tell you a lot about the music. When you turn up to an audition, you're going to be playing some music that's going to fit in with their band. So you're going to need to know what it is that you're going to be expected to play when you turn up. There's not, unless you're one of the top 1% musicians in the world that are so good they can just turn up and join in with the band and play anything. I'm certainly not. If this is your first band experience, the chances are you're probably not. So you need to have a little bit of knowledge about the music that you're going to be asked to play in advance. So I've talked before in previous videos about different types of bands. A couple of major ones that spring to mind are a covers band that plays songs by other bands, normally played in pubs, working men's clubs, popular places to get the audience going, singing, dancing, that type of thing. And original bands that play their own music and are trying to promote their own music to whoever's listening. I've played in both. Covers bands tend to get a lot more bookings and a lot more popular than original bands at this level. So knowing what you need to play. If you're auditioning for a covers band, and if it's not clear on the advert, ask them, is it covers, is it original, what songs am I playing? If it's a covers band, they will have a set list of songs that they normally play, or they might say, for example, as a band they might know 30 or 40 songs. On a typical gig they might play 15 or 20 of those and rotate those. You probably won't be expected to learn 40 songs for your audition in a week's time. That's quite unrealistic. But having a knowledge of the songs that they actually play, that will give you, to start with, an indication of the level that you'll be expected to play at. If for example, you look at the set list and a lot of the songs they sing, oh yeah, I can probably do that, oh I know that one, you know a couple of them, some of them you think, oh yeah, I've heard that, it probably will be possible to learn it. But if you look at the entire thing and your first instinct is, yeah, I know what it sounds like, but oh my god, how am I going to play it? You know, a little red flag, perhaps that's not the band for you. That doesn't mean you're rubbish, it just means that at this point you're perhaps not ready for playing in that particular band. So be aware of what they're going to play with. And that's just in terms of cover songs. Now, with a covers band, a couple of other quick things is, normally they'll play the song as it is played by the original band in terms of the arrangement, so it should match the original recording in terms of the introduction, the verse, the chorus. There might be a solo section or whatever. The structure should be the same. Some bands do mix it up a little bit. I've done that in bands where I've changed the arrangement a little bit. They would probably tell you if there's anything to be aware of in that area. Secondly is what key the songs are played in. All original songs are played in a particular key, whoever recorded it. Ed Sheeran, Slayer, Britney Spears, whoever's recorded the song, it's in a particular key. Now, when bands cover songs, sometimes they will change the key, normally to suit the singer in the band. Now, if you are the singer and you're auditioning, you might have more of a say in that, because it'll be determined by your vocal range. If you're an instrumentalist, a guitar player, bass or whatever, doesn't really matter for the drummer, but for the pitched instruments, if they've changed the key of the song, then you'll need to know about that, because otherwise you might learn the song and it won't sound right, even if you've learned it perfectly, if they're playing it in a different key. They might be using a capo, but sometimes that's not always the solution to it, depending on what style of music and what song you're playing. So get as much information about the songs that you're playing as possible. With a covers band, it's quite easy to be able to learn the songs, because you can always find resources to be able to learn the songs. There's loads of stuff online nowadays. Your websites and things, you can get chord diagrams, you can get tablature, even the play through songster type websites and things like that. So it's fairly simple to be able to learn existing songs by other bands, so that you've got all the resources there. Even back in the day, there's plenty of music books available in my time that you could just either buy the book, go to the library if you were lucky, get the book, learn the songs, because they buy famous bands. So use whatever resources you need in order to learn those songs. Now, on the other side of the coin, if the band plays original music, it's going to be slightly more difficult in terms of you learning the songs, because they're not already out there. You probably won't have heard them before, so you've got to not only learn them physically on your instrument, but you've got to learn them in your head. Popular songs in the the charts or whatever sort of thing you're into, you know what they sound like, so that's half the battle to start with, because you know what it should sound like. With an original band, you're hearing the song for the first time and then having to learn it, and also there won't be sheet music or websites out there with the music there for you to learn. If that's the case, ask the band. Obviously, at the very least, they'll be able to give you some music that you can listen to. Now that might be, they might have the songs uploaded online on one of the websites. They might offer to send you a CD through the post, or pass you a CD or a USB stick with the songs on to go with. And if that's all you've got, then you'll have to try and learn the songs by ear and play along to whatever you've got there, and pick up the songs. If you're really lucky and the band is super helpful, they might help you with that as well. If you ask them, they might give you some. They might already have song sheets telling you which chords are being played, or if they haven't already got that, they might be generous enough with the time to spend a little bit of time with you. If you can't figure out a particular part of it, they might give them a ring and have a chat with that. But always ask. The worst case scenario, they'll say no, and then you're going to have to try and figure it out as best you can yourself. Be aware that might be a test. They might not give you the music even if they have it, because they might want to determine if you can learn the song by ear, because that might be something that's important to them. They might work in a certain way that pitch and hearing songs and being able to figure things out is important to them, so they might be giving that to you as a test. They might not be being awkward if you think, oh well, they could have told me more, they're just being horrible with me. It might be for a reason, so bear that in mind as well. If you're comfortable with the songs, whether it's from learning them from popular music, from a covers band, or even if you can pick them up by ear, which that's a different skill as well. It's not always something that's easy when you're first starting out. It gets easier the more you do it. There might also be other tests that are thrown at you in an audition, aside from just playing the songs. They might say, well, let's just have a jam for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever, and see what comes up. So we'll start off playing in the key of A, in the key of E flat or whatever, and you might be expected to just play along and improvise with what the other musicians are doing. They might tell you about that in advance, they might not. They might throw that upon you on the day. But just be aware of these things. Also, they might, when you turn up at the audition, they might say, can you show us any riffs or any music that you've come up with yourself that's original? If it's an original band particularly, they might want you to contribute in the fullness of time towards the songwriting process. So they might want to see what sort of things you're capable of coming up with. Those two things with the jamming and the coming up with riffs, that's probably less likely to occur as a beginner, particularly if you're open with them and say, look, I've not done this before, this is my first attempt. And there's no reason to lie about it. You may as well be honest about it. They might say, oh well, we're looking for someone more experienced, sorry, in which case, no problem, you're not wasting time, they're not wasting time. Or they might think, well, nothing to lose, he might be really good, we might get on with him, so we'll give it a try. But you probably might not get tested too much on those things in your first band when you're first starting out. But just so you've got the idea in your head, you could be asked to do those things. If you get there and you're asked to do those things and you can't do them, don't feel ashamed. Just say, look, sorry, I'm not good enough to do this at this moment, and just leave it at that. There's no problem with it. Just be honest is the main thing. So you've got the information, you found out what you're going to play, you've made your list, you're comfortable with everything. So it's down to you to try and perform the stuff as best you can now. So with practice, that's when your practice comes in. The more you practice, the more you get the stuff into your head and into your routine, the easier it's going to be for you, and the less you're going to worry about it on the day. So you want to practice to be comfortable, basically. One of the big differences between practicing by yourself and practicing with a band is that when you're playing through a song, when you're practicing by yourself, usually if you play something wrong or you get stuck or you forget, have a brain fart, it's quite often popular to just stop and either start the song from the start again, or start that section again with the verse, the chorus, or whatever, and play it again through. Right, which is great for personal practice. But if you're playing with a band, you will be expected to play the song from start to finish. If you make a mistake, then your best bet is they're not going to stop for you, they'll carry on playing. So your best bet is to try and, okay, put your mistake aside, recognise, again, refocus, where are you in the song, and then come back in wherever it is appropriate as soon as you can, as possible. So the practice routine there is playing along with the songs as much as possible, not just by yourself, but along with the songs. If something happens, if you forget something, you drop your plectrum, whatever happens, someone rings you, get used to the idea of you're not starting again from the beginning, you're coming back in to play the song, because eventually that's what you're going to be expected to do. It's be realistic about what you're being asked to learn. If the band turns around to you and says, oh, we need you to learn these 30 songs and we'll audition you tomorrow night, it's probably not going to happen, is it really? Let's be honest about it. So what do you do? Say, I can't do that, I haven't got time, I'm working a full-time job as well, can we do it in a few weeks' time, or whatever. They'll say yes or no. If they say no, no problem. But there's no point setting yourself up to fail when you know that you're not going to be able to meet those requirements. That's an extreme example. Normally they'll be very, very welcoming and very understanding. A lot of times, I would say, when I've joined new bands, they're quite happy to play maybe 5 or 6 songs to begin with on the first audition, and just have a go at that. So you're not going to be burdened with a full great big encyclopedia of songs. In terms of learning and remembering the things, don't be afraid to write the song sheets down if need be. If you looked at some of my other videos where I provided song sheets, just very basic, just put the chords down in order, so I've got the structure of the song. Even if you need to go to the audition with your song sheets and put them up there on a music stand and use those to help you, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Obviously if you're playing a gig, you can't be doing that, you need to look confident and look the part. But for an audition, or even sometimes in rehearsals when we've been working on new songs and things like that, I've used a music stand and music written down on song sheets to help my memory, to be able to play it whilst I'm concentrating on other things. And even if you don't need to use it, it's good practice. Writing it out and writing it down helps it getting into your mind in terms of remembering it. So it seems like there's a lot to do there, but always stay positive and don't be afraid of what you're doing. What's the worst that can happen from your first audition? The worst that can happen is you'll make loads of mistakes, you might get a bit of a blush on and feel a bit embarrassed, like, oh, I don't belong here, I'm not good enough, and then someone will say, sorry mate, you're not really what we're looking for, we're going to look for someone else. That's the worst that can happen. So there's nothing bad's ever going to come from it. Finally, I'm going to talk about communication again. I mentioned this at the start in terms of finding out where the band are playing, how often, what songs you're playing. Even once you've nailed all that down and you're preparing for your audition, if something happens and you can't make the audition, make sure you get in touch with them and tell them. Some things do crop up, and at this level you're not a professional musician, some things are more important than playing for a new band for one night. You know, a family member might be ill, or you might have to work and earn money in real life. So don't be afraid if that happens. My advice is let them know as soon as possible, because then you're not wasting the time, and they'll be grateful of that. They might turn around and say, no problem, we'll do it next week instead. They might say, no, you're a time waster, we don't want to hear from you again. Doesn't matter. If something's happened, something's happened. You can't help it, but just let them know as soon as possible. Also, even if something outside hasn't happened, if you don't feel like, if you really don't feel like you're ready for it, and you're not prepared, and you're not doing the songs, that you're not performing them in your practice, and it's not working for you, and you know, you just don't want to do it, the same again, just let them know. They're not monsters, that they'll be understanding. They've all been there themselves once, they've all been on the first audition once, so they'll understand. Certainly myself, if I was auditioning with my band, a new member, I would much rather they ring me up and say, listen Matt, you know, I have to give it a try, learn them, I'm really not feeling it, I'm sorry, but I don't want to waste your time, and you know, I understand you're busy and all the rest of it. Thumbs up for that. And the benefit of that as well is because the music world is a networking world, and people know each other, and then you might go and audition for another band, I might know the other band, they might say, oh, have you heard of Joe Bloggs? I might say, oh yeah, he's really nice to talk to, but it just didn't work out, he couldn't make it for one reason or another, but yeah, give him a chance, he's a good guy. Alternatively, have you heard of Joe Bloggs? Oh yeah, we auditioned him once, and well, we tried to audition him once, but we spent loads of time with him and that, but he just didn't turn up on the day, and we'd all gone down to the rehearsal room and stuff, so he just didn't seem right reliable. See the difference? So just treat people as you would want to be treated, and then even if this audition doesn't work out for you, then people will have a positive view of you going forward. In my next video I'm going to talk about the actual audition day itself and what specifics you might need to be aware of for that, but as with anything, like you're playing, you're practicing, always make sure that it's for fun, because that's what it is for, and the main thing is enjoy.